Hi there, back here with my 236th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you my review for Redshirts by John Scalzi. Now for me, John Scalzi has always managed to satisfy. I picked this one up at the same time I did When the Moon Hits Your Eye, which I have already reviewed, video below. So I thought I'd try Redshirts, and in my comment section somebody actually did say that this was one that they did enjoy a lot. And I think my best way of describing this one is Galaxy Quest, but back to front. Now, Galaxy Quest, if you haven't seen it, is about the actors of an old show called Galaxy Quest, which is rip on Star Trek, who are still trying to live in the limelight of their old show, and for reasons they're conscripted by an alien race to help defend them against another alien race, and they'll resume their acting roles, but this time for real. Tropic Thunder did a similar thing with a bunch of war actors playing a war who end up fighting a real war. This is indeed the exact opposite. These take a real crew of a spaceship, again as a send-up of Star Trek, although they do acknowledge Star Trek within the realms of the story, who effectively end up coming to the real world to stop their show being made so they don't get bumped off, is the best I can say. John Scalzi's great at coming up with these brilliant ideas, what-if situations, without ever really going down that tedious task of explaining away why it's happened or how it's happened. It's just, this is a thing, it's now in place, we're now going to play with it. And I quite enjoy that. Sometimes you don't always need the answers. Well, I don't. You might disagree with that. For some reason, the show that was made in this universe's 2015 has affected the crew of a starship hundreds of years in the future. And literally their everyday lives are suddenly hijacked by the narrative, and they end up saying things and doing things they wouldn't normally do for the sake of entertainment before being given their lives back, and they resume what they were doing before. And the book really is split into two main halves. The first bit is where we follow the crew of the spaceship, the UU Intrepid, as they are brought on board to replace previous lot who got bumped off, and they find very quickly as they start their new duties that there are a few unwritten rules about how to continue your survival. Not going on any away missions is one of them, but also being scarce when any of the leadership team turn up are looking for the unwary to come and accompany them on an away mission. And I certainly preferred that first half. It was really funny. It was a loving spoof of the established Star Treks and other similar shows, where we have a whole bunch of tropes which are addressed and lampshaded. If you go on an away mission with one senior leadership team, you're likely to survive. If you go with two, your chances of survival are greatly diminished. And if you go with all three, you're not going to come back. If you go with this character, you're likely to survive, but you go with this character, you're not. Some are walking disaster areas. So I really enjoyed the first half. The second half, when they end up travelling back to Earth and trying to change things, was still very enjoyable, and certainly it took the story in a way I wasn't expecting it to. But as a sort of fourth wall break, I found it was almost disappointing. I think I'd prefer them to have resolved the situation, however it came about, back on their original ship without resorting to such peculiar methods. But on the whole, I really enjoyed this. It had me laughing out loud on numerous occasions. Again, more in the first half than the second, but even then, there's still funny parts. And it finishes up with a really interesting few sections where, once the whole story's been resolved, I'm not going to give away how that is, but a few of the characters that have been heavily influenced in the real along the way, we get their story of what happens next and how the events of this book have changed their lives or have put their lives in a particular direction. And I really appreciated that. A really nice touch and way to finish off the book. And the story had already concluded at this point, but it was a nice series of post-credit scenes, if you like. A lot of fun. Booktastic. Have you read Redshirts? Have you read John Scalzi? Did you like them? What was your favourite? What was your least favourite? You're allowed to have opinions. Comment down below, please. But as usual, if you have nothing nice to say, please keep it to yourself. Thank you. I think my favourite one's still the Kaiju Preservation Society, which I don't know if that's because it's the first John Scalzi I read, but I really enjoyed that one. Yeah, feel free to like, subscribe, other YouTubey things, and until next time, see you later. The UU Intrepid. The UU Intrepid, 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 the UU Intrepid. Why was that so bloody hard?